Welcome back to the Castle Grounds Apiary. Today we are going to give the official 1-year review of the Beegin Bee Bunka concrete beehive. It's officially been 1 year, just a little over a year in fact, since we debuted, or at least put into production, put into motion, put into operation, I guess is the best word for it, a concrete beehive. Not this one. This was our initial heavyweight concrete unit that now sits out here in nature at the Castle Grounds Apiary, and it's more of a symbol than anything. It's too heavy to really use in a practical manner. Not to say we won't use it someday. It's not the best tool for the job today. Now that doesn't mean that this is a bad hive. It just means that there are some characteristics about it that don't make it our first choice. We'll go into that more a little bit later. To start off with, I want to talk a little bit about the experiment and what the results and data show, or did show. There are some subjective findings, and then there are some objective results of the experiment, and really the objective results outweigh anything that you would consider subjective, but I'll go ahead and give you both. So the hive that we used was a lightweight concrete. We used a perlite instead of a rock aggregate, a stone aggregate, which makes it significantly lighter than this almost 500-pound behemoth, but still quite heavy, especially compared to its wooden counterpart. Now what we did just over a year ago is we took two not identical nukes, but two nukes on the same day from the same supplier, and put them side by side in my backyard experiment setup. One in wood and one in the lightweight concrete version. What we wanted to see was if we minimize the variables, the location, the day they start, where they came from, their genetics, and I don't know how similar their genetics were, but we have to assume they were fairly similar. And the only thing that's really different is the media, the material of the hive. How will they fare? Which one will survive? Which one will produce the most honey? Which one will ultimately be a better hive? We didn't feed either one of them. When they were brand new, we put them from the nuke box they came in straight into an empty concrete hive, an empty wood hive. We put some temperature and humidity sensors in there, and then we closed them up. Never fed them, didn't ever give them any pollen patties, really just observed them. The results were, and if you've seen the other videos, it's pretty obvious by now, the wooden hive really struggled. And it's not because it was wood. There was something else at play there. But long story short, the concrete hive absolutely thrived in every single way, outperformed the wooden variable in the experiment. Now let's pretend that wooden hive didn't fail for whatever reason. It's important to note that not only did the concrete hive outperform the wooden hive in the backyard, it actually outperformed every single hive in this apiary. Not just the nukes from that year, but it even did better than the established hives that we had overwintered from the year before. Like, it was impressive. Not only did they make honey faster, they drew comb faster, their population was great, they were easy to work with. It was just a enjoyable hive to keep. So they do very well in concrete. I'm going to open the video saying that, with hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, this concrete hive can produce as much, if not more, honey than any wooden hive. Now, that's the objective data. Now I'm going to get into the pros and cons and talk about the subjective stuff. Let me back up real quick. On the objective side, one of the reasons why the concrete hive was so good is its insulative properties. In the summer, it maintained a much cooler temperature. In the winter, it it didn't maintain temperature inside as well, but its range was smaller. So there weren't as many swings. If you look at the data from a wooden hive, when it's hot outside, the temperature really spikes, and when the temperature drops, it really dips. So as where the concrete hive would do this in the summer and the winter, the concrete hive would have a much more stable internal temperature. So it would still get cold and it would still get warm, but it would do it uh, with much less effort from the bees maintaining either cooling or heating. Okay, so now on to the cons, the subjective cons. It is freaking heavy. I can lift this lid by myself, but it's a feat, and we'll just put it that way. Now this is heavier than the lightweight version. Um, they have shallow supers because of the weight and because of the setup. You get deep frames in the brood chamber, but every super you have is a shallow, and they haven't offered a medium or deep super variant yet. At least the last time I talked to the main guy, I think they're deer watching me. The main guy, they have no intentions of making that. He said they're thinking about a medium, but it's not in the works. Um, they're not palletizable, meaning, a lot of people, they like to put a pallet on the ground and do fours. These are significantly longer and wider. You might be able to get 4 on a pallet, but it'd be hanging off. So just like the stand dimensions aren't the same, you need a much beefier stand. The stand that this is on is that's solid Alabama limestone, hand carved Alabama limestone, with 160 pounds of concrete in the base and a solid steel bracket system that I made. So it's got to be heavy duty, way heavier duty than something you would make out of wood. So it's a little tougher to set up. So it's hard to get into. It's not standardized in its configuration, at least not in America. I know people use shallows in other places. Let me let this plane go by. You wouldn't think I live out in the middle of nowhere. The size and weight also make it complicated from a distribution standpoint. You're not going to pay to ship one of these, at least not anybody in their right minds. When you buy this from Beegin, you buy the molds and you have to pour it, and that takes time. That material cost isn't low. Each one of these, a material cost. What in the Sam hell? The material cost in each one of these is between 60 and 80 bucks. And then it takes about 3 hours to make. It's a little bit of a chore to mix concrete. I don't think anybody will argue that. Another thing, if you're trying to mobilize multiples of these at a time, you're not going to be able to put 10 of these in the back of your car, really even in the back of your truck, and a trailer would struggle. Even some trailers, small trailers, single axle, 3500K axle trailers would struggle moving 10 of these. It can be done, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not for mass production. It's not for commercial beekeeping. So that rules out a handful of people. So what's great about it? What's good about it? What are the pros? Well, it's maintenance free. Once you make it, you're done. It doesn't need paint. It doesn't need finishing. You could seal it if you want to, but if you let it cure properly, I actually think it being unsealed is helpful. I noticed humidity content from the sensor readings was actually lower in these hives. Some people think that it's going to wick moisture from the outside in, and it's possible that it can do that. But if you leave it under plastic and let it cure, it will tend not to. And what I actually found is I think it wicks moisture from the inside out, like it pulls moisture out of the hive and is absorbed by the concrete. I could be wrong, but I noticed that it always stayed very dry inside these hives. Humidity content was lower than the wood. So it hasn't been a problem. They look cool. That's a bullet point. Super durable. This tree dropped a limb on the top of this. It wasn't a big limb, but it was a limb. Absolutely no problem. At some point, I might torture test one of these things to just see how much force one of these can withstand. I know the Stone Apiary Instagram channel page. He makes these. He's from the UK, and he had a fence blow over on his, and the fence was damaged, but not his hives. They can handle lots of wind. Obviously, it would take a significant amount of wind to topple this. And this is Oklahoma, home of the F5 tornado, and I'm not worried about this hive one bit, not at least moving. So I really think these are more for your obviously recreational beekeeper, your hobby beekeeper, somebody who wants to get into beekeeping but doesn't want uh, to be engrossed by it, that doesn't want to do weekly inspections, daily inspections, because I'll be perfectly honest, the heft of these hives makes me not want to inspect them. Just plain and simple. I do it, but not as much as I do the wood hives. One, it was an experiment and I didn't want to over observe, and two, it's just a pain in the ass to take these off all the time and separate them. When these supers are full of honey, capped honey, which they fill very quickly, kudos to the concrete, uh, it's not fun to do by yourself. So who, in my mind, here's what I see. Hobby beekeeper, backyard beekeeper, someone that has a really pretty backyard landscape, a gardener, and they want an ornament, a lawn feature, and they just want it to be passive beekeepers. And I know those are bee havers, not beekeepers. Well, who cares? You know, if someone's taking care of their bees and not and doing it in a low maintenance way, I guess that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, you know, this would be a great option for somebody who just doesn't want to be in them a lot. Now, eventually we might work up a system, like a mechanical lift system, to make this a little easier and more standardized. For now, we're going to do a few more of them and just see how it goes. We want to see if the results from the first test are repeatable. So this year we're redoing the concrete hive in the backyard. We have put a concrete hive in the pond. It'll be our bees in a moat, hive in a moat set up, and we're going to do one or two more concrete hives, just a normal environment out here with our normal wooden apiary hives, and we're going to see if those concrete bees also kick butt like the ones in this last year's experiment. So in review, after a year, what are my thoughts? Would I buy the mold again? Because the mold's not cheap. I paid $1,000 for the mold, and then it's 60 to 80 bucks per hive, plus the time and effort to put them together. Um, yeah, I think I would do it again, because if I can figure out a way to take the manual labor out of this, I can increase the amount of honey while reducing the amount of bees and reduce the amount of time I need in here, just because they don't need micromanaged. I'm not a micromanager. I like to set something on the course to success and sit back and watch it do its thing. And that's what I did last year, and we're going to see if they can do it again. Um, Will we phase out wood hives altogether? Not yet. Like I said, it'll be incremental change. One last year. This year, we'd like to do 3 or 4. Um, if the results repeat, we might be able to take a 15 to 20 hive wooden hive apiary and consolidate it into 5 to 6 concrete beehives and yield just as much honey. So to me, that's a no-brainer. We just have to figure out the weight management. She's a big girl, but big girls have a place too. So if you have any questions about the concrete beehive, or if you are in central Oklahoma or surrounding states and you want to try one of these, we might be able to hook you up. We've got a few extra and we can make more. I will obviously ask that you pay for the material and some on top for our time. Me and Henry work hard on these. But yeah, would love to get other people's feedback on these in other regions to see if the results are the same there. So let me know if you want one. Let me know if you have any other ideas or tests we can experiment with. And until next time, we'll keep you posted. Thanks for watching.